The first thing I noticed was that she was wearing one glove. Not a pair, one. The left one, dark gray wool, tucked over her hand while the right one sat loose in her jacket pocket. She noticed me, noticing, and said, without looking up from her phone, "The other one's in my car, which is currently being towed." That was how I met Hazel. No, wait, that's wrong. I'd known Hazel Kimura for almost 7 months by then. Same floor of the same building in Portland, same morning coffee window at the same sad little cafe on Burnside. We'd had the kind of relationship that builds itself quietly in elevator silences and borrowed Wi-Fi passwords, and the occasional, "Hey, did you hear that noise at 3 a.m.? Or was it just me?" It was never just her, it was always the pipes. What I mean is, that was the night the version of us that existed before everything changed started to come apart at the seams. I was 31. I did structural assessments for an engineering firm downtown. A job that sounds more impressive than it is, which is mostly me telling people their buildings are slower to fall down than they thought. I was good at noticing things that didn't belong. Things slightly off. A beam sitting wrong. A wall bearing more weight than it should. I had been noticing Hazel like that for months. She was 28. She did UX research for a tech company she described as fine, honestly, which is the worst thing a job can be. She laughed at things I said before I realized they were funny. She corrected mispronunciations in a way that somehow made you feel cared for instead of embarrassed. She had a small succulent on her windowsill named Gerald, which she had told me about exactly once and never mentioned again, which meant I spent a disproportionate amount of time wondering how Gerald was doing. We were at a coworker's birthday thing, drinks at a bar in the Pearl District, one of those exposed brick places where the cocktails cost $16 and the bartenders look like they have novels in progress. I'd been dragged along by my buddy Theo, who knew the birthday guy through a climbing gym. Hazel was there because she knew the birthday guy's girlfriend. We discovered this at the same time, standing next to the same booth, holding the same brand of overpriced beer, with the identical expression of two people who had not expected to see their neighbor at this specific party. "Small city," she said. "Extremely," I said. We spent most of the night in the corner talking about everything except the fact that we'd been doing this quiet, careful dance for 7 months. Easier that way. Safer. I had a talent for keeping things clean. Around 11, she got a text. I watched her face go through something, not panic, more like a sudden calculation. She put her phone away and picked up her jacket. "My car got towed," she said. "I parked in a loading zone. I didn't realize. Do you need? I'll get a lift." She was already pulling on her jacket, moving with that focused energy she had when she was managing something she didn't want to feel too much about. "It's fine. Where's the impound lot?" She paused. "Swan Island. That's not a short trip from the Pearl. I'll drive you," I said. She looked at me the way she always did when I offered something, like she was trying to figure out if the offer came with a cost she couldn't see yet. "It's almost midnight, Owen. I know what time it is. It'll take forever to get the car released." "It's a whole process, Hazel." I set down my beer. "I drove to Bend and back for a site inspection this month. I can handle Swan Island." Something moved across her face. Not relief exactly. Something quieter. "Okay," she said. "Thank you. The drive over was easy." She sat with her phone in her lap, one gloved hand and one bare one, scrolling through the towing company's website with the defeated energy of someone reading their own verdict. I drove and didn't fill the silence because I'd learned that about her. She needed a minute when things went sideways. Not comfort right away, just space to absorb it. The impound lot, when we got there, was exactly what you'd expect at midnight. Fluorescent lights, a bulletproof window, a woman behind it named Cheryl, according to her badge, who regarded us with the specific exhaustion of someone who has spent too many hours watching people learn lessons the hard way. "Credit card only," Cheryl said. $340. Hazel went still. Not the normal still. The specific still of someone doing math they don't like. "The app said $260, Hazel said. "Storage fee started at 9 p.m. I watched Hazel look at her phone, then at her card, then at the wall slightly to the left of Cheryl's head. Something was wrong. I didn't ask. I waited. "Can I? Is there a payment plan or no payment plans?" Cheryl said, not unkindly, just practiced. "Okay." Hazel took a quiet breath. "Okay, just..." She was tapping her card against her palm, a thing I'd seen her do once before at the cafe when her card had declined and she'd pivoted so smoothly to cash that I'd almost missed it. Almost. I've got it, I said. She turned. Owen. No, it's fine. It's $340. It's not fine. I'll put it on my card. You can Venmo me whenever. She stared at me for 3 full seconds. I could feel her working through whether to argue. Then Cheryl cleared her throat gently, which was either mercy or impatience, and Hazel exhaled. I'm going to Venmo you tonight, she said. You don't have to do it tonight. I'm going to Venmo you tonight. I handed over my card. By the time they released her car, it was 1:45. We stood in the cold parking lot under a light that flickered like it had somewhere else to be. Her car was a 12-year-old Civic the color of a rainy sidewalk. She stood beside it with her keys and looked at me and said, "Thank you," in the same voice she'd used earlier, except this time there was more in it. Tiredness, maybe. Or something like it. Are you good to drive? I asked. Yes. A pause. Probably. That pause did something to the night air. I just meant the hour, she said. I'm not. I'm just tired. It's fine. I looked at her. I looked at the Civic. Follow me back. We live in the same building, Owen. I know. Follow me anyway. She made a sound that was almost a laugh. You're very bossy for someone who owes me $14 in coffee. I don't owe you. I stopped. From when? October 5th. You forgot your wallet and I covered your Americano. I've been waiting for you to remember. I stood there in an impound lot at midnight with a flickering light above us and the cold off the river moving through my jacket. And I thought, October 5th. I remembered October 5th. I remembered she'd laughed at something I said, and I'd tried to pay for her coffee to make the moment last longer, and discovered I didn't have my wallet. I remembered the look on her face when she paid. Like it cost her nothing. Like she did it because she wanted to. Like that mattered. I owe you $14, I said, plus interest. But she was smiling now, small and tired and real. She followed me back. I kept an eye on her headlights in my rearview the whole way up I-405. In the elevator up to our floor, we stood at opposite walls out of habit. She was still holding her keys. I was looking at the floor number change. I'm sorry about tonight, she said. Why? Because you spent your Saturday in an impound lot. I've had worse Saturdays. She tilted her head. Like when? February. I had to tell a building owner his foundation had been incorrectly poured and the whole east wall needed reinforcing. He cried. Grown man, 60-something, I made a gesture. Hazel winced. That's terrible. This was better. There was more parking. She laughed, really laughed, the kind that surprised her. The elevator opened and we stepped out onto our floor. She stopped at her door. I stopped at mine. 2 down, Owen. I turned. I meant it, she said. Thank you, not just for the card. For coming. There was the thing again. The thing in her voice that had more in it than the words. Anytime, I said. And I meant it in a way I probably hadn't fully understood until that exact second. She nodded. Unlocked her door, glanced back once, just enough for me to catch it. Then she was gone. 3 days later, the Venmo notification came in at 11:47 p.m. $340 and a note that said, plus the 14 from October 5th and don't argue with me about it. I stared at it for a long time, then I typed back. You didn't have to do it tonight. Her response came in 4 minutes. I know, I wanted to. I left that unread for an hour. Not because I didn't know what to say. Because I knew exactly what I wanted to say, and I also knew I was very bad at saying it without accidentally making it smaller than it was. I sent, noted. For what it's worth, October 5th is one of my better memories from this year. I watched the 3 dots appear, disappear, appear again. Then, mine too. The following Friday, I knocked on her door with flowers. Not roses. That felt like a statement I wasn't sure she'd asked for. I had sunflowers, which felt honest. Bright and a little ridiculous, the floral equivalent of just saying the thing. She opened the door in socks and reading glasses she didn't usually wear in the hallway, holding a mug that said, I survived another meeting that could have been an email. She looked at the flowers, then at me, then back at the flowers. What are these for? She asked. I figured $14 in coffee debt was probably enough of an excuse to ask you to dinner. But if you need more justification, I also appreciate that you didn't make me feel weird at the impound lot when I paid. Hazel was quiet for exactly long enough that I considered retreating to the elevator. Then, are these from the place on Alberta? Yeah. They put them in water right when you buy them. The woman there showed me. She was very serious about it. Hazel looked at the sunflowers again. Something moved through her expression that I filed carefully away for later. Let me get my shoes, she said. We went to a Thai place on Mississippi that she'd mentioned once. In passing, 4 months ago, I'd written it down. She didn't know that until I suggested it and watched her face register that I had been listening to her in the way people listen when it matters. You remembered, she said, after we sat down. I remember most things you say. She picked up her menu. Her ears went a little pink. That's either sweet or alarming. Can't it be both? That's a very confident answer. I've had a week to prepare for this dinner. She looked at me over the menu with the reading glasses she'd forgotten to take off, and which made her look more like herself than usual. Somehow. You've been thinking about this for a week? I've been thinking about this for considerably longer than a week. The week is just when I stopped pretending I wasn't. The menu came down slowly. Owen, you can't just say that in a Thai restaurant. Why not? Because now I have to concentrate on pad see ew while knowing that the pad see ew can handle it. She stared at me. I stared back. Then she laughed. That same surprised one, the one that happened before she could decide not to, and some of the careful air between us loosened. We talked for 2.5 hours. The food came and went, and we ordered tea and didn't move. We talked about her job and mine, about Portland, and where she'd grown up in New Hampshire, and what she thought of the Pacific Northwest in February gray, in a way that feels personal, and what I thought about it. Same, but I've made my peace with it. We talked about what kind of music we listened to when we were driving alone, about whether ghost stories worked better as films or books, about the specific loneliness of being good at your job in a city where you don't quite feel like you've landed yet. Is that how you feel? She asked. Like you haven't landed? Some days, I turned my tea glass, less lately. She was quiet. Me too, less lately. We walked back instead of getting a lift. It was cold enough that she had both gloves this time. She had mentioned it before we left. The way you mention something small when you want someone to know you're paying attention to your own patterns. We walked close enough that our arms brushed every few steps. She didn't move away. Neither did I. Outside our building, she stopped at the door and looked up at the thing above us. One of those old marquee signs from when the building used to be something else, half its letters burnt out, so it now just said, Grand, grand, I said. Grand, she said. Same thing. She smiled at it. I like that it's broken. It makes it seem like the building has given up on impressions. That's either the nicest or the saddest thing you've said about this place. Can it be both? I looked at her. She was looking at the sign, but the corner of her mouth told me she'd said it on purpose. We went inside. In the elevator, she stood closer this time, not touching, but the space between us felt different, smaller, and chosen. When the doors opened on 4, she stepped out and I followed, and we walked down the hallway without discussing it until we were both stopped outside her door. This was good, she said. Yeah, the restaurant especially. Glad you approved, I have to admit. She turned her key over in her hand. I looked it up after you mentioned it to see if it was actually good or if just heard the name once. What did you find? 4.3 on Yelp. She paused. So you either did your research or you got lucky. I did my research, I said. I always do my research when something matters. Her hand went still on the key. I wasn't quite sure who moved first. Maybe neither of us did, and we both just stopped holding our L's quite so carefully. She turned slightly. I leaned slightly, and then she kissed me once, soft, a question mark at the end of a sentence she'd been composing for a while. I answered. The hallway was quiet around us. Someone 2 doors down had a TV on. The overhead light had that yellowish cast that every apartment building hallway has, the kind that makes everyone look slightly warmer than they are. When she pulled back, she kept her eyes closed for an extra second, like she was finishing something internally. Okay, she said softly. Okay. She opened her eyes. I've been trying not to do that for 6 months. How was it? Worth the wait. A beat. Don't get smug. I'm not smug. I searched for it. Relieved. That surprised her. Relieved that I wasn't making it up. Something opened in her expression, something that had been carefully kept closed. She looked at me the way you look at someone when you recognize that they've been as scared as you have. You weren't, she said. Making it up. Good. She unlocked her door. I stayed where I was because she hadn't asked me in, and I wasn't going to make assumptions, and she could read that in my face, which meant the look she gave me was something between amused and touched. I'll see you tomorrow, she said. I'm doing laundry at 10? Tragic. You could join me. She considered. I could. The machines are terrible on our floor. They are. Tomorrow at 10, she said. Bring quarters. She went in, the door closed. I stood in the hallway for a moment in the yellow light before I went back to my own apartment and sat on my couch and thought about the way she'd said worth the wait like it had cost her something to admit it. The next 3 weeks were the best and strangest of the year. We did laundry. We made coffee. We walked to the farmer's market on Saturdays, and she photographed things on her phone with the same focus she brought to everything. A specific arrangement of heirloom tomatoes, the light through a produce tent, an old man playing a guitar near the entrance, who had clearly been playing guitar there since the market had a different name. We had dinner twice more. Real ones, planned with menus I researched and playlists she vetoed 2/3 of with the confidence of someone who has strong opinions about driving music. You listen to too much late 90s alt-rock, she said. It's formative. It's a mood disorder. That's harsh. It's affectionate, she said. There's a difference. She pulled up something on Spotify and handed it over. Here. Listen to this one next time. I did. I actually liked it. I didn't tell her for 3 days, so she couldn't be too right about it. What we didn't do was put a name on it. That was mutual and unspoken, which is either the best way to agree on something or the most dangerous. We were both aware of it, I think, that there was a version of this that could be named and become something, and the naming might change the shape of it before we understood it fully. Then one Thursday, I came home from a long job in Gresham, a school gymnasium that had subsidence issues, which is a polite word for the floor is slowly deciding it's a ramp, and there was a note under my door. Bad day. Takeout? I texted back in 30 seconds. She came over with pho from the Vietnamese place 2 blocks away. She sat on my couch in her work clothes and complained about her product manager with the specific eloquence of someone who's been holding it in all day. And I listened, and at some point I put my arm around her, and she leaned into my side without breaking her sentence. She stayed for 3 hours. When she left, she paused at the door. You're a good person to have a bad day around. I have a lot of experience with bad days, from the job, from being a person. I held the door. Hazel. She looked at me. You can have bad days here whenever you want. She absorbed that. The way she absorbed things, not immediately, not loudly, just let it settle somewhere. Okay, she said. She left. I went to bed thinking about the weight of her against my side, the fact that she had leaned, the fact that it had felt like the most natural thing in the world. The complication showed up on a Tuesday. His name was Danny, and he texted her while we were standing in the grocery store, debating whether the good olive oil was worth it at $12 versus the off-brand at $6. She looked at her phone once, then put it in her pocket. The second time she looked, she turned it over. Everything okay? I asked. Yeah. A pause. Yes. I put the good olive oil in the cart because it seemed like the wrong moment to deliberate about condiments. We were in the parking lot when she said, that was Danny. I kept loading bags. Who's Danny? She wasn't looking at me. Someone I dated last year. He saw a photo someone tagged me in and she stopped. He wants to get coffee, to catch up. I got in the driver's seat. She got in the passenger side. I wasn't sure what the right answer was to that, so I said nothing, which was either wise or cowardly, and I genuinely couldn't tell in the moment. He wasn't a bad person, she said. He was just not careful with me. When things were inconvenient, I became inconvenient, you know? Yeah, I said. I did know. Not from personal experience, exactly, but from watching what it did to someone, from the way she'd looked at the impound window when the price went up, the quiet calculation she did before asking for anything, the way she said, I'll Venmo you tonight, before she'd even said thank you. I'm not going to meet him, she said. You don't have to decide that for me. I know. She turned to look at me then. I'm deciding it for me. She put her phone away and looked out the windshield. I drove. After a minute, she said, can I tell you something weird? Please. When I saw his name, my first thought wasn't about him. A pause. It was about whether you'd pull back. I looked over. Pull back how? Go polite on me. Get very mature and understanding about it. Create some distance so you couldn't be accused of overreacting. I kept my eyes on the road. That's a specific fear. He did that. When I needed things. Made me feel like needing anything was a design flaw. She said it matter-of-factly. The way you say things you've been over many times in your own head and have gotten to the other side of. So now I wait for it. That moment where a guy remembers having an exit and starts looking for it. I turned into the parking garage, found a spot, turned off the engine. Hazel. She looked at me. The only time I've thought about distance this month is when I had to go to Gresham for 3 days for the school gymnasium, and I kept thinking about how annoying it was that you weren't there to tell me what music to put on. She was quiet for long enough that I heard the garage ventilation kick on. That's not nothing, she said finally. No, I said. It's not. She reached over then, not dramatically, just her hand over mine on the gear shift, fingers threading in. Daylight, parking garage, cold concrete around us, nothing cinematic about any of it, just her choosing. I blocked him, she said. I looked down at her hand. You don't have to, I know. She squeezed once. I wanted to. We sat there for a minute. I thought about the impound lot. I thought about October 5th. I thought about the way she'd been doing tiny methodical calculations this whole time, not because she was cold, but because someone had taught her that needing things was expensive. Hazel. Yeah, you can need things. From me. I turned my hand over so we were properly holding. I'm not going to make you feel like that's a problem I'm tolerating. She looked at our hands. Then up at me. Her eyes were doing the thing where they got very still right before she said something real. I want to believe that without waiting for the part where it stops being true. Then believe it now, I said. And if I mess up, which I might, I'm not perfect. Tell me. Don't let it build until you think you were wrong about me. Just say it. Her thumb moved across mine. I'm bad at that. I know. I've been watching you not ask for things for 7 months. A small laugh. That's a long time to pay attention to someone. I'm thorough, I said. It's the job. She laughed harder this time, and the tension broke without the feeling disappearing. That's the thing I was figuring out about her. Hazel's feelings didn't evaporate. They changed shape. She leaned her head sideways against the headrest and looked at me with an expression I was starting to recognize as the one she kept mostly hidden. I like you, she said, simply. Like it had just become easier to say it than not to. I like you back, I said, just as simply. Okay. She nodded once, decisive. Good. Now let's go inside before my pesto freezes. We got pesto? I put it in the cart when you were deliberating about the olive oil. You can't just… $12, she said, getting out of the car. I checked. It was worth it. 6 weeks later, she came over on a Sunday with her laptop and her reading glasses and the particular intention of a woman who has decided something. She sat cross-legged on my couch, opened a document and said, I'm putting my name on a lease. I was making coffee. New place? Renewing mine. But I'm making them fix the radiator this time. I've been putting it off for 4 months because negotiating with my landlord makes me want to lie down on the floor and not get up. She looked at her screen. Will you read this email before I send it? I brought the coffee over. Read it. You said I'd appreciate your consideration at the end. Is that bad? It's polite. It's also the written equivalent of asking very nicely while someone ignores you. I sat beside her. Say I expect this to be resolved before lease renewal, or I'll need to explore other options. She looked at me. That's intimidating. That's the point. A pause. You sound like a building that means business. Buildings don't mean business. This one does. You make it mean business. I looked at her over my coffee. She typed the new sentence in, read it back. Exhaled. Okay, she said. Okay, yes. That's better. She sent it before she could talk herself out of it, which was a thing I'd learned she needed. She needed the window to be small, or she'd close it herself. Then she tipped sideways until her head was on my shoulder and she said, I feel like I just jumped off something. You sent a firm email to your landlord. It felt like more than that. I put my arm around her. Yeah, I know. She curled slightly. Gerald the succulent was visible on her windowsill, across the hall. I could see it through the gap where she'd left her door ajar when she came over, which she did now without thinking about it, which was the kind of small thing that made me feel the size of what was building between us. Can I ask you something? She said. Always. When did you start? I mean, was there a specific moment or was it just gradual? I thought about October 5th. About the impound lot, about one glove. There was a moment, I said, and then gradual on top of it. What was the moment? The first week I lived here, I was in the elevator, and you got on at 3 with groceries, and your hands were too full to press your floor number, and you just stood there waiting without asking for help. And I reached over, and pressed 4, and you said thank you, and looked at me like I'd done something significant. I paused. I remember thinking, she's not used to things being easy. Hazel went very still. I thought about that a lot, I said, quietly. The way you think about things you're not sure you have the right to think about. She lifted her head and looked at me. Her expression was the one I filed away. The open one. You pressed my floor. 3 years ago, someone I cared about stopped asking for things because I stopped noticing she needed them. I was bad at it. I didn't want to be bad at it again. She was quiet for a moment. Is that why you paid at the impound lot without making it a thing? Partly. I held her gaze. And partly because I wanted an excuse to follow your headlights home. She stared at me. Then her face did the thing, that slow arrival of a smile that started in her eyes and took its time reaching her mouth. She put her hand on my chest the way she had started to do, like she was checking that I was there. You are very quiet about very large things, she said. I work in structural engineering. We learn to be quiet about load-bearing concerns. Is that what I am? A load-bearing concern? You're the whole structure, I said. I just figured that out slowly. She kissed me then, soft and slightly fierce, the way she did things when she decided they mattered. When she pulled back, she put her forehead against mine and said nothing, which was its own kind of answer. Outside, Portland was doing its thing, the specific February gray that felt personal, as she had once said. Rain on the windows. The radiator in my apartment clicking the way radiators did. Gerald on her windowsill, still alive, apparently thriving. We sat there on the couch for another hour while she revised her lease email twice more, and I read structural reports, and she stole my coffee even though she had her own, and I didn't say anything. Because there was a version of all of this I was just beginning to understand. By April, the landlord had fixed her radiator. By May, the elevator in our building had become a problem in the best possible way. There was too much history in the buttons. She'd kissed me once for every floor. I knew which one she pressed before she reached for it. Her laptop charger had migrated to my apartment. My running shoes had found themselves near her door. She introduced me to her older brother on a video call and forgot halfway through that she hadn't really framed it as anything official, which meant he spent the second half of the call asking me questions with the particular energy of someone conducting an informal background check. She was mortified. I answered everything. He likes you, she said afterward. He asked me what my 5-year plan was. He asks everyone that. What's your 5-year plan? She thought about it with her characteristic seriousness. Something I'm proud of. Something that didn't require me to shrink down to fit inside it. I looked at her. Good plan. She took my hand. What's yours? Similar, I said. Plus decent olive oil. She laughed, leaned into me. Outside it was finally spring, the way Portland spring happens. Reluctantly, then all at once, like the city has been holding its breath. Some months later, I put sunflowers on her counter on a Tuesday for no reason. Not a date, not an occasion. Just flowers on a Tuesday, the way you do things when you're not trying to prove anything anymore. She came home from work and saw them and stood in the kitchen doorway for a second. What are these for? She asked. The same reason as last time. She looked at me. Because you owe me $14 in coffee. Because you're worth the long version, I said, of everything. She walked across the kitchen and kissed me with both hands on my face, and I thought about impound lots and elevator buttons and the particular math of a person who had spent a long time deciding what she was worth. I thought about what it looked like when someone stopped doing that calculation and just let themselves land. Gerald was doing great, by the way. She told me he'd survived the winter and was putting out new growth, which she mentioned in passing without elaborating, the way she mentioned important things. I told her that was good news. She said she thought so too. We were quiet for a minute, the good kind. Then she said, I'm making pasta. Stay? I was never going to leave, I said. She smiled into the refrigerator. I know, she said. That's what I'm counting on.